All right, this is the debriefing video for the special meeting that occurred on May 23rd, yesterday, at 6 p.m. Shortened list of things because it was a special meeting, particularly about the resignation. In the approval of the agenda, we had an adjustment to the agenda. Christy wanted to add closing of accounts, which is something that needs to happen and something she's sorting out in the accounts, and it's more convenient to do it rather than her ending up on the accounts and then closing them later. I voted against it. And my case against it is, especially in the case of special meetings, is that I can call a special meeting with 18 hours notice. And then if you don't have to have the items specifically listed that are going to be happening at the meeting, which you do, you have to specifically list items. But if 7 members show up, then you can adjust the agenda, which is perfectly legal. And I don't like the fact that the government then has the ability to call a meeting 18 hours from now, and they could do anything they want as long as all 7 members end up there. And so in regular meetings, I think that makes sense. They're scheduled throughout the year. Everyone knows, and I get information out so people can see what the agenda is. But if something needs to be added in that agenda at that time, that makes sense because it's a regular meeting that's happening. I just don't like it so much in the special meetings. We didn't have any public comment in the first section. Next, we had Resolution 2022-17 to adjust the expenditures policy. And essentially, we have an inter-office / inter-government department conflict. Kind of, not exactly. Christy contacted MTA, and they were saying it's not possible to put the supervisor as a backup on the accounts. The MCL 41. That's the section that deals with townships. So 41.75 says that it goes through the clerk and the treasurer's office. And that's, it's fair enough. I don't want to be on the accounts. MCL 41.58 says that if one of the departments, clerk or treasurer, is disabled and can't perform the functions, as in the person in the office and the deputy can't perform the functions, then an interim can be appointed. So the lawyers thought that it would be fine. But nevertheless, a hassle essentially for a few weeks difference. And so I made the proposal that we just not make this adjustment just because it's going to end up messy. It's one of those things that municipalities sometimes, and not too uncommonly, end up in lawsuits with themselves. And so that's one of those things that I think could easily lead to that. And so I figured we'd just move on past that. It doesn't. Lee asked at that point, because I said it's important to choose your hard, right? It's a great saying because it implies that there is no easy path. So you get to make a choice, but all the paths are hard. And I think that's true of life just in general. And so he asked what the other hard paths are, which is a great question. and there are a few different options. I didn't want to make a quick, jerky reaction to appoint someone all of the sudden, but we also need to be able to pay things as well. So it's a rough spot. It's a rough spot to balance out. It's part of why I think townships are structured wrong, but that would be state law to change that, of course. And I get no time. Otherwise, I could probably lobby for it, but I don't think I'm going to get around to it while being in office. Maybe we'll see. We need someone in that office, but having a few weeks would be better than a few days, right? And last Friday, when Lori told me that she was going to resign, she wanted a special meeting called on Monday. I put a thing up on Indeed that day. And we got 18 applicants on there. 15 aren't from the township, even though the first thing I put up was the thing from MTA that you have to be a registered elector, registered voter in the township. Still, it's difficult for people to get that, I guess, and maybe people just automatically apply. We ended up with 3 inside of the township, so I contacted all of them, and then there's a previous clerk from the township back from 09, 10, something like that, in that range that's interested. So that's a total of 4. In that, but moving fast on that because I had no idea how the meeting was going to go, and it went significantly different on 2 of 3 points that I initially thought it would be, so 66% of the time. But there's the idea of just calling a quick meeting, appointing someone before Lori gets out or near that same time period, so there's no no missing spot there. Or there's going those first couple of weeks in June without being able to pay things, or there was putting me as the interim. These are kind of the basic options. And I don't, from a citizen standpoint, I don't like a single one of those options. I think they all seem kind of sketchy. So I don't like any of them. But nevertheless, one has to be chosen. When it came up for Lori's resignation, she read her letter, short letter. But I'd asked her before if she wanted to extend the date. This is actually another option, 4 options. If she extended her date out, and so even though she wouldn't be here, she'd be working at a different job, the deputy can continue in those duties, and then she could be getting paid for the time that she's not working here, or we could make a motion that she's not getting paid, so now she's a clerk that's not getting paid and not doing the job, but we have her in the role so the deputy can continue doing the job, so we can actually do interviews for appointing the next person as the clerk. But Lori, that puts her in a bad spot, right? Realistically, she's going to catch flack over that. And if part of the reason she's leaving is to be less stressed because of all of the stuff like this that's constantly coming up in these types of weird little fights and stuff, politics, then that just puts her in a horrible spot. And so she said that she couldn't do that, and maybe that was owing to the other job. And so the board ended up passing her resignation, and so that will kick in on the 31st. And when I came in, it was controversial. Obviously, I'd been basically having issues. I've been having a fight with the township for approaching 2 years by the time that I took office, and so it was very contentious. And Lori worked with me very well, and I think we made progress on a variety of things. And so it's very inconvenient, but I get it. I don't want to hold anyone back in life, but nevertheless it's still inconvenient, but I appreciate her time. And next we have the appointment of the cemetery coordinator / sexton, and for some reason this got controversial, just politics. And I thought it would be convenient if Lori stayed in the role, and she was willing to for a little bit to kind of transition over, and we have a laptop that she could use because she's obviously going to end up being in another job. And so she, after hours or on the weekends, she could be coordinating that type of stuff. And the cemeteries are difficult. There's been a bunch of issues with the cemeteries, and just coordinating them is a decent amount. And so, but people spread stuff about that, whatever it ended up being. And so she's just making a clean break then. And then Christy is going to be overseeing that, and the 2 administrative assistants are going to help out on the paperwork in the office and stuff, and we'll see how that goes. But because that's a difficult one. There's a decent amount of work to do there. And so I think their decision on that will be that they won't be accepting purchasing of new spots and whatnot for a while, to help get that sorted. And then in the second board or public comment, I asked, what the board was thinking it's going to do if we don't have the option of Lori staying on after, if we don't have the option of me as the interim, then we're basically down to 2 options, and that is to either do a quick appointment or to go a couple of weeks without being able to pay some things. And so the board leaned in the direction of doing a quick appointment. That was what was voiced. And so I asked when they wanted to do it, and we discussed it a little bit, and that's going to be happening on Friday at 6 p.m. So Friday the 27th at 6 p.m. And I put out a notice today for that special meeting. It's another special meeting. And then I'll get a packet out tomorrow on Wednesday. Last night I contacted the 4 candidates and let them know that they could include a resume, letters, whatever they want in the board packet. And they have to have that to me by tomorrow, Wednesday at 2:30 for me to include that, because I want to get it posted tomorrow so it's publicly available so people can review it on Thursday before the meeting on Friday. And so I will get those packets out, and then I'll shoot a briefing video for that meeting. We'll have that meeting. I'll shoot another debriefing video. So busy week in the transitions, and we move for adjournment. So decently quick meeting, and but a decent amount of change as well. So a lot happening in that short amount of time. If anyone wants to reach out, feel free to email supervisor@daltontownship.org. My direct line at the office is area code 231-332-6700. Feel free. Thanks. Bye.